Aloha and welcome to Divinely Uninspired episode 30. The DUI podcast is back with you once again. We're so glad to be together. We are with Jeremy.
Hi.
Hello. And we are with Penny.
Hey.
Hey. And we are with Kyle.
Hello.
Kyle, did you have a good Monster Bash last week?
I did. I had a lot of fun.
What happens at a Monster Bash?
People dress up. People eat gross things. People win things.
What was the grossest thing somebody ate?
Just sardines.
Oh, okay. That's not that bad.
The barn still smelled like sardines about 2 days afterwards, but that's okay.
You should order that stuff from Sweden, that can of fermented fish that when they open it, everybody starts throwing up. Have you ever seen that?
Yes.
You should
No.
Google that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Google it. There's some fish. It's like fermented fish. They ferment forever and they put it in a can. And like there's all these videos of like people opening the can. And apparently the smell is like the worst smell in the world. And people just start like throwing up immediately. They actually say it doesn't taste bad. You just got to get past the smell.
It is called rackfisk.
Yeah. It's pretty. The videos of people opening the can are hilarious. You should YouTube it. Yeah.
I'm a sympathetic puker, so probably not.
I think that'd be awesome.
That would be a great Sunday morning game.
All right, we'll do it.
Let's make Kyle puke. Hey, today is going to be a good news day. We felt like we needed one of those. There's been so much sadness in the world, and we're just going to have a good news day. And the first piece of good news I want to share with you guys, I just heard this on the radio. You know, there's been lots of gun violence, and luckily, Pat Benatar is stepping up to do something about it, and she has announced that she is no longer going to perform Hit Me With Your Best Shot because she feels that it contributes to gun violence. So that is some good news. That
It's all solved now.
I think so. I think it's over.
Because there's a lot of people that, are driving around, get ready to shoot somebody, listening to Pat Benatar, and they're like, you know what?
I should not be laughing right now.
I'm not going to do this now because she's right.
I told you we were going to do all good news, and we want to thank you, Pat, for kicking things off for us.
Wow, she really thought she was solving something with that?
Apparently.
She did. It's not thought. She just solved it.
Yeah, it's over. It's over. The NRA has crumbled, and there are no more Second Amendment rights. And anyway, we got way more fun stories coming up. All good news to leave you feeling good throughout the day. But first things first, here's the song. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're listening to Divinely Uninspired, podcast by Journey Church Shepherdsville, hosted by Jeremy Willis and me, Rusty Wilson. You can find us online at journeyshepherdsville.com. For questions or comments, email podcast@journeyshepherdsville.com. Maybe we'll feature your question or comment on a future episode. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the show. So when I was a kid, one of the things I hated doing more than anything was raking leaves. Did you all like raking leaves, or did you absolutely hate it?
It was awesome because then you jumped in them at the end.
The jumping in, I'm all about.
It's the bagging.
Yes.
Remember when they tried to get people really excited about bagging leaves and they made them into giant pumpkins? Remember when that craze went about?
Well, that was like that was a way for those of us who didn't have a lot of money to decorate for Halloween. Thank you very much.
Giant bags.
So my best idea ever is actually a terrible idea. Was when I was about 12, I used to have to rake the leaves. That was my job. And we had 2 giant trees in my parents' backyard. So I'd rake them all to the middle, make a huge pile. And so I was like, man, I really don't want to put these in bags. And so what I did was I got a can of gasoline and poured the gasoline all over the leaves and then got it on fire. And I didn't think that went all the way through.
That is, I would pay money to see that.
It was pretty great.
What about you, Kyle? You've kind of lived all over the place. Have you had to rake leaves?
No, but my parents always got really upset when I played in the leaves because they smell horrible, and they couldn't take me places because we would play in leaves, and they'd be like, "No, we can't go to the movies and do things." And I was like, "Oh no!"
My kids smell all the time.
They couldn't just change your clothes and give you a
they
shower.
don't just leave an extra pair of clothes. Sometimes when we're out playing in leaves at friends' houses.
What kind of trees smell that bad? With
dead leaves that sit in a ditch for
They're
weeks.
Norwegian.
No, just like there's like a retention wall and there were leaves.
They are actually a Norwegian tree that ferments and they ship it over and people vomit when they open. That's the kind of tree that he's playing in. So, well, here's the good news. If you don't like raking leaves, this year experts are saying maybe we shouldn't be doing that at all anymore because it's not good for the environment. In an article from Jeremy's favorite website, IFL Science, experts say don't get rid of those fallen leaves on your lawn this time of year, as if you remove them, you will be missing out on lots of free vitamins for those of our listeners who are in the UK, for your soil. Leaves are full of important nutrients, including nitrogen, carbon, phosphorus, and potassium. This natural fertilizer is great for your lawn and the small critters that live in your garden. So, doesn't matter what your HOA says, doesn't matter what your spouse says, science says don't rake the leaves because it's good for the environment.
So this is not new news to me. I found this out by sheer accident. There was one year, this is probably 10 years ago. We lived in a house. We had 2 big trees out in our front yard. And I just did one year, just didn't rake the leaves. I was like, forget it. It's going to be fine, whatever. So I left them out there. And then the next spring, when I went to mow the grass for the first time, I had my best looking yard I've ever had. And it was like they had done a protection, and as they had deteriorated, it was basically like fertilizer for your yard. And so now I don't leave them out there because it does look kind of bad, but I just mulch them up with the mower and just kind of spread them out and don't have to rake anymore. Yeah. And I Googled it, and apparently that's a real deal. And now we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Full circle.
It is. And it's good for the invertebrates that call your lawn home, like little spiders or worms or other creatures. So that's good for them too. And even though some of us don't like those creatures, it's good for them.
I don't really see a lot of people raking anymore. So maybe this is already common knowledge. Like people have already figured it out.
No, they blow them. They have blowers.
Oh, is that what
now.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of trees, like big trees in our neighborhood. Maybe mostly in the backyards, but
yeah.
So maybe I just don't see it.
Yeah, our neighborhood's fairly new, and so
you just don't see people out there raking.
I mean, we have trees in our neighborhood that are like 3 feet tall. So
right.
Hopefully
you go out and rake your 3 feet tree.
Yeah, but it makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, whether you believe God created this and all that, I mean, everything is created. It kind of has a reason why it does what it does. So I know the trees lose their leaves in order to be able to survive the winter and not use as much. But then it makes sense that the leaves would have a purpose too, to make the ground better below. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And it's got this cute little picture on here of a hedgehog, and it says that hedgehogs need leaves for winter nests.
But that's why we don't see hedgehogs, is because we haven't been leaving our leaves out.
Exactly. They're endangered because of us.
Hedgehogs.
They are so cute.
Mm-hmm.
They are very cute. And did you guys know that there's now armadillos in Kentucky?
Yeah.
Somebody in All About Shepherdsville posted a picture of their armadillo, not their armadillo, an armadillo on their front porch. It got caught on the Ring camera. I didn't know they were in Kentucky.
Yep. They've been coming up north. I've seen them in Tennessee before.
Yeah.
I'd never seen them in Kentucky.
Saw them quite a bit in Missouri, actually.
Man,
they're so much fun to watch.
They used to do armadillo races at the state fair when we were kids, and you would try to get behind them and encourage them to run and feed them little worms. And then they found out that they spread leprosy, and they were like, "Oh, we can't do this anymore." So it's a true story. See, it's good news though, because they're not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
All right, let's move right along to another great news story. And it's one I'm really excited about because I love seafood. Did you know that the tuna population was declining?
No, absolutely not.
Who knew?
Who knew?
Yeah, well, it was, but good news, it's no longer declining because of a protection zone off the coast of Hawaii, which is why I used aloha this morning as we began, which means hello and goodbye.
Thank you for letting us know that.
In Hawaiian.
I did not know that.
Is the language Hawaiian? Is that what it is?
It's Polynesian.
Polynesian, yeah.
That's a sauce at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, but I think they're Polynesian descent. We just kind of took them over. We said, you're part of America now.
I mean, who doesn't want to be?
That's what we do. So I think that they're still Polynesian descent.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah, Pacific Islander. Yeah.
Okay, so the language is Polynesian.
I don't really know.
I've never
spoke it. Yeah.
I'm gonna look it up.
We could just Google it real quick.
We could. Somebody do that.
Let's talk about the tuna while they're Googling.
Yeah, so the tuna rate, specifically what we would know as ahi tuna, which is also a Hawaiian / Polynesian / Samoan word, whatever it is. And they were dwindling, and what they found is when they created this very large no fishing zone off the coast of Hawaii, the rates of tuna have increased dramatically, and so has the fishermen's catches outside of that protection zone. So apparently tuna don't go very far. They don't travel vast distances, and they have been allowed to flourish in this 1.5 million square kilometer marine preservation called, here we go, Papahanaumakuakea. I got it.
That wasn't
That's
as smooth
impressive.
as the first
All
time.
right, I'm going to try it one more time.
Okay, good.
Papahanaumakuakea.
So how does this work? Like, I mean, how does it like a preserve out in the ocean? Like, is there like a fence?
Yes, there's buoys.
Okay,
And
and so they just know not to.
I actually don't know.
You see what I'm saying? Like, I understand like a nature preserve. Like, usually here, like they're fenced in or
Right.
there's like barriers.
So what they found out was that the tuna actually don't stray too far from where they were actually born. So I guess that area they just don't go out as far as they had.
They're like people
they
from
would.
the Midwest. They
Which is
tend to
kind of
stay where they
interesting,
were
right?
raised.
Yeah.
Like that tuna, you would think like a.
But how do they keep people out of that? Is what I'm saying. I guess
doubt they
that's
could.
what I was saying. Like, how do they?
I'm sure there's some illegal
Because you said 1.5
Fishing.
million square.
kilometers.
I mean, that's
yes.
that's what I was saying. That's a big.
I think
piece
they
of-
said just a little bit over the state of California, like a little bigger than that. Is
Yeah.
that right? It's about
like
seems about right.
Yeah.
I think they said it's 4 times the size of
Oh,
California.
that's huge. Yeah.
So, and it's probably somewhere near that swirling Great Pacific garbage patch. But that's not good news, so we're not going to talk about that.
Like tuna is weird because when you think about it, like we have sushi and like you have like all these like it's really expensive places, but then it also comes in a can, and it's just kind of a weird thing. Like and the cans like like growing up, it's like I gotta eat tuna, and now that you're adult, you're like I gotta eat tuna, but it's raw, so it's better.
That's
It's just a
right.
weird thing.
I love tuna salad.
Ooh, no.
No?
No.
With the mayonnaise and the celery.
Yeah,
no.
heck
I
yeah.
do. I'll eat that.
I mean, I won't get it from like Subway,
But
but
you see what I'm saying? Like, isn't it weird that like there's just so like I don't know.
it is
It's a weird food.
It has an inordinate footprint in our diet. I will
Yeah.
say that. So I had sushi. I went to Dragon King's daughter last week, and I don't know if we got tuna.
You gotta watch eating a lot of tuna.
Because of the mercury.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
not good news, Penny. This is
Well,
a
I
good
got
news
good
only.
So-
news for you in a minute.
Like in this
Oh, okay.
nature preserve, like did they tell the sharks to stay out too? Like,
Yes.
Just
Yeah, they can control
Yeah.
them.
They have them all geotagged.
so it doesn't make sense though that the population outside of this protected area has gotten better though.
well,
That's a weird part of it. I mean, I'm not saying it's not true. It just seems weird.
I mean, here's my guess is how that would work. So the fish spawn, right? That's what they use. That's how they mate. It's called spawning, and they spawn. And as that footprint continues to get larger and larger and build outward as those tuna are living longer, that what becomes home is a larger space outside of that nature preserve, the Papahanaumakuakea Preserve, and they are then fished legally. And so they're getting better catches because those tuna are straying just a little bit outside of their home.
Got it.
That's what my theory is.
Well, this
Okay.
is good news.
I have hey, did we find out what language it is?
Yes.
What is it?
Hawaiian.
It is?
What?
I
It
was,
is Po-
Yeah.
It's Polynesian, but it's
I was-
Hawaiian. They call it Hawaiian.
I was
But
right.
it is Polynesian language.
But yes,
yeah,
we were
it's a
both-
we were
member
all
of the
right.
family. It's a member of the.
Yeah.
It's good news. We're all right.
That's right.
Except for Kyle. He
He had
Oh,
no say so.
What? No,
He
I
said
looked it up.
He
Swedish.
said it was Spanish.
He said Swedish.
Yeah,
We were
Swedish,
all
Did I
yeah.
say
What?
Swedish?
He
Did
said
I?
Swedish. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, now I want to go to Chick-fil-A and order me some nuggets.
Why don't
and-
you eat Polynesian sauce on tuna? You should try that.
Oh.
It
Dude,
probably
it'd
would
be
be good. That's not.
Gross.
Listen,
Or is it a double
I used to
negative?
work at Chick-fil-A, and I could like we would just we would do stupid stuff all the time, but we would like drink the Polynesian sauce straight out of the little container because it was so good. They were delicious.
That sounds kind of gross.
My favorite though is that nobody knew what it was called. So people would come up and they'd ask for the sweet and sour, they'd ask for the Hawaiian, or they'd ask for the pink sauce. My favorite though was the Polynesian. Can I get that Polynesian sauce?
with a polyp in it.
Yeah, right. I hope not. They need to get that checked every 10 years after they turn 45. All right. So we've got good news. We've got good news today. The tuna are on the increase. We don't have to worry about that. You can enjoy not raking your leaves. We know that the language spoken in Hawaii is indeed Hawaiian.
Polynesian.
It is Polynesian.
It's both.
It's,
you could
it's
call
part
it
of the
either.
family.
Either one.
Let's just call it the Chick-fil-A language
Yeah.
because then
I'm
I think-
sure Hawaiians love that.
Isn't Chick-fil-A language like good manners?
it's my pleasure.
Let's move on.
Okay. All right. So this is a good story, and this one's got such a fun little picture on the front. This is from the Good News Network, and it's not actually from them. They are just repeating what they've heard elsewhere. But in the last 26 years, U.S. child poverty has declined 59%. It used to be that 1 in 4 American children were underneath the poverty line.
Mm.
And now it's 1 in 10 children are beneath the poverty line. And that is just great to hear.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Great news, but it could be better.
It could be. It could be. But
That's good. It's
we're
great
focusing
news.
on the positive, Penny.
I know.
Don't bring
Sorry.
us down. Don't bring us
Progress.
down.
Well, okay.
Well, do you have something to bring us down?
No, I
'cause
don't.
then I'll
I
bring
think
us back up.
no, I think this is fantastic. This is great news because, oh my goodness.
So if you hear that in the background, that is our office. That's our office mascot.
So distracted by that.
That's okay.
Rusty's puppies had a vet appointment, so we're actually just in a vet office.
That's
just
right.
sending away to group.
We asked the vet. They were like, "Hey, you can use the OR today.
Right.
We're not doing any spaying or neutering." No, that's our office mascot for the day. One of our pets had to come in and work with us today. We've all enjoyed having Ruby here. Shout out to Ruby if you're listening, Ruby.
I'm
But
sure she does.
but I don't know. I mean, I think that it's
So I guess so it's good news, but I guess my question, because I'm fascinated by this. So the first thing is this summary was in 2019. So that was pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if those numbers have changed because of COVID. I think that it's changed a lot. For good or for better or for worse, has it changed because of that? And then the 2 programs that have benefited are the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is SNAP,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know what the other one is, but I mean, that is really good news. I would just be curious, like, is 2019, even though it's a new article that you sent us, but the last study was in 2019. Has COVID impacted that in any way?
I'm sure, especially because the earned income tax credit is different than the child tax credit, which, that child tax credit that was sending those of us who are parents of 17 and under that sweet cheddar for like 6 months. That also benefited a lot of families, took them above the poverty line. But then when that program ended, they slid back beneath that poverty line. So, and I'm not really sure what the earned income tax credit is either. Taxes are very confusing to me.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of.
No, that's good news. That's good. I wonder if the world has gotten better too. I mean, this is the United States, but I wonder if the world's gotten better.
Well,
as countries develop, I mean, we obviously now it's not third world, now it's developing countries because they're changing things. So.
It's interesting to say that. I'm getting ready to go to the Dominican Republic, and I've been going to the Dominican Republic for 20 years, and watching its middle class develop has been fascinating. But there's also this thing that so we used to take people down to this community called the Hole, which was literally a community in the city garbage dump. They just didn't have to pay taxes there, and they could just build themselves a little hut shanty house, and it was like complete squalor. And over the last 20 years, that has gotten better and better and better. It's still, located within the confines of the city dump, but it's relatively better. But I would take people down there who remembered when it was worse, and watching them be just completely shocked at oh, this isn't as bad as I remember it being. And that's good news that things are getting better in the world. I think the world is.
I think we're figuring out ways to help people more. Helping with groceries. Schools are stepping in a lot more to help with, kids that are going hungry, single parents who are unable to afford childcare while they go to work to make money for their family, stuff like that. So it's probably just an advancement in our government's way of supporting people who really need it. So
yeah. I know that we have enjoyed the benefit of getting that EBT card that they were, but we didn't know we had one until just like 2 months ago. We've been accumulating
all that money
that whole time. So now I've got groceries for like the next 2.5 months covered.
That's nice.
Yeah, I'm very, very pleased, especially with Christmas on the horizon. So anyway, great news.
It is great.
I'm
It helps
happy to
kids
hear it.
out when they go to school to make sure that they're focused on what they need to do there and be successful. I mean, I think this is really good news.
And who doesn't love cute kids?
I know.
I mean, there are some people, but we don't want to talk about them.
Kyle, what do you
Don't
think?
look at me.
I know. Come on, what's your real deal? Like, do you like kids? You like kids under the age of 10?
The way I've described
This
it to
just sounds
people,
weird.
yeah, the way I've described it to people is I've mostly worked with teenagers, so I can have conversations with teenagers. I don't know what to talk to a 3-year-old about.
Nobody does.
Yeah.
Nobody. So, but like, you just stand there. I don't know.
No,
Yeah.
you just
I'm
talk to
learning.
'em.
I'm learning.
Okay.
That's what we'll say.
You make fun faces at them, and then you chase them a little bit, and then you just talk about, oh, what's that in your hand? Oh, that's a crayon you got there. What are you gonna do with that crayon? Oh, cool. I mean, that's
And then no matter what month it is, you could always be like, well, what do you want for Christmas?
Uh-huh.
You know,
True.
'cause
Oh,
it's
okay, that's a
they
good
love
one.
to talk about that. It could be like February.
I
You're
do
what
like
you
to
want for
ask. I
Christmas?
do like to ask sometimes if they have a crayon, like what noises the crayon make. I feel like that's a good one, just to confuse them.
what?
But this is why I'm not good with
Confuse
kids. This is
me.
why I work with teenagers.
That would confuse a teenager too.
It confused me.
Yeah, I like to confuse
what I
people.
said. I was like, I
it's
don't
one of my
even know.
more favorite things to do.
Yeah,
I like
we-
to confuse people.
What kind of noise does a crayon make?
Yeah, you just ask them questions like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead and
No,
let us know.
I don't
what-
have the answer. I'm the one asking the question because they know more than me.
Hey, Kyle, what color is the number 7? I mean, that's like, what? It doesn't make any sense at all. What a weird thing to do.
Okay.
But I guess you know what? It's still good news because it makes you happy. Hey, so we are going to get into some really good news here. You ready? Christianity Today. Christianity Today.
Christianity.
Yeah. Thank you. I couldn't remember what it was called. They just released a study, as reported by Barna, that Gen Z wants to know more about Jesus. This is not a parody article. This is real.
Mhm.
Half of all teenagers around the world say that Jesus is loving, trustworthy, and wise. The rumor of Christianity's demise amongst younger people are greatly exaggerated, said David Kinnaman, CEO of Barna Group. That's, I think, a really important
Mhm.
story. So, Kyle, seeing as we just learned that you don't know how to talk to children, you do know how to talk to teenagers. So, as our resident teenager expert, what do you think about this?
No, this is great. Actually, I heard this in an article or some other study almost like a year ago. And I think one of the reasons they point back to is Gen Z is with the access to technology, they're so interested in other cultures and in learning so many other things that this is one of those other things they're trying to figure out more about. So they're willing to talk about it. They're just trying to figure out what works best for a lot of people because there's so much information out there. But yeah, Gen Z loves talking about spirituality and things. I think they're the most open one in like the last 4 generations, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that at the end of the article, I think the biggest thing for me to tell is you have Gen X and millennials, which I'm not a part of either one of those. Those are dumb generations. I'm that gap here.
Here we go.
But anyway,
The Zillennial.
but both of those, for the most part, interesting is they were raised by Christian parents, so they had Christianity forced upon them.
Mhm.
And now you have Gen Z who's grown up in households that are probably familiar with Christianity because of their upbringing, but aren't necessarily going to church or pushing it on them. And now these kids are curious about this, which I think is kind of interesting. You know, that idea of them discovering on their own and curiosity about the world and things like that. So I think that's kind of interesting too, is that, you know, there's always a pendulum and it swings back and forth. And so now you got a generation that it wasn't forced upon them. And now they're curious about it because they probably heard so much about it, but don't really know about it, you know? So I think
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Well, so maybe I just don't know any different, but are there more churches now in, let's say, the past 20 years that are not connected with like a Baptist church, Presbyterian? We see more churches that are not affiliated with other.
Yeah. So like we're an independent Christian church, but we are come out of the Restoration movement, which outside the Church of Christ pretty much planted independent churches.
Mhm.
Well, that trend has become more and more popular, not because of us for any reason, but I mean, even like a lot of Baptist churches are no longer Baptist churches. Now they're independent churches because they don't want to be connected to a convention that tells them what they have to do and all that stuff. So no, that is becoming more and more popular, that idea of becoming an independent church. So there's much more of them than there used to be.
So maybe that does play a role in that as well. You know, maybe they're more comfortable
Yeah.
with less formality.
Yeah, well, I think that, you know, you also have a lot of, when you are a part of a denomination, and there's good and pros and cons of denominationalism, mostly cons, but there are some pros. But you know, you there's less red tape, you know, and so you can minister to people better, you can answer questions better. You don't have to worry about, well, if I say this, you know, is somebody from the convention going to come down on me? Or, so, I mean, yeah, there are pros and cons. And I think that probably, especially Gen Z, like Kyle was saying, it's more curious maybe than any are open to that. And that they're probably getting connected to churches that they're open to that as well. So,
Yeah. And while I'm, the number of people who are self-identifying as Christians is going down in the United States, I tend to think that they probably aren't asking that question of the people that fall into Gen Z. So, in another 10 years, as Gen Z grows up a little bit, and start being asked, what do you identify as in terms of your faith? It will be interesting to see where things are.
well, and I think I think just from a spiritual standpoint, because I know we're going to talk about this in a second, but like if you think about millennials and you think about Gen X, not everybody, but as a whole, very narcissistic, selfish generations who make everything about themselves. And again, not everybody, but as a generation, they kind of defined by that. And so, but that's not how we were created, is to make it all about ourselves and be. And so now you have a generation that's underneath them that's like, man, those two generations are jacked up, and so maybe they are asking some, not just about Christianity, but deeper questions about what it is to be human, and just have seen in ways in which, the previous generations and the people who have influenced them maybe haven't always made the wisest choices or influenced the world around them in the best ways.
Yeah, we're
So,
also finding that Gen Z connects most with a baby boomer generation, because that's not necessarily one of those they have most in common with, but that's their grandparents' age. So obviously, grandparents are the best and have a huge impact. So when you have teenagers that are interacting with grandparent age, they kind of interact with them as if they're their grandparents, and becomes this really cool relationship that's also happening as well.
That's good news.
Mhm.
If
good
there's-
news.
if-
It's interesting though.
Yeah, I'm always curious to hear where generations fall in terms of what they're leaning towards and that sort of thing. And one of the things that I know I hear people say a lot is that the church, or that Christianity is in danger, of being washed away or whatever. And I just don't have that fear at all. I just the church has endured much worse than what people seem to think it's enduring now.
Yep.
So that's encouraging stuff. Good job, Gen Z. We're proud of you.
My kids are Gen Z. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they would have been after.
Nope, Gen Alpha just started the next one. They are
We're getting a little ridiculous with these names, though.
I agree
we're
with
just
that.
going back.
Yeah.
But they are like, if you're born after 2012, I think is the new cutoff. So that's basically people that were born and they only know the world of post-COVID.
Who names these generations?
Neil Howe and William Strauss.
How do you know that?
Google.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
You should have just went with it, Kyle. You should have.
No,
We
that's
had a
good.
technical difficulty. I told Kyle to Google it to look smart. That he just gave away a secret. That would have
You're
been
not
so
supposed to give it
impressed.
away.
Yeah.
You asked.
I did. I was hoping that you had learned some improv since our filming.
Nope, absolutely not.
Here's the rule with improv. You never say no. It's always yes and. So that's the rule with improv.
Have you watched that documentary about who was it that they came up with that rule? It was some really weird guy. It was it's on HBO. It's fascinating. He was never good at improv, but he's the one that coached all of those like famous people and like Saturday Night Live cast.
Yeah,
And that was his rule, was it's always yes and.
Yeah, Bob Odenkirk talks about him in his book.
Yeah, I can't think of his name.
and
though,
I
but
can't.
yeah,
But
it doesn't matter.
it's Leslie
Jones. No, that's
no,
that's
not her. I don't know. It's
but there's a great documentary about that person.
yeah. He was nuts, but
Yeah.
he was brilliant.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the rule with improv, is always yes and. That way you can keep it going, because there's nothing worse than somebody you're trying to play a game with and they just want to kill it.
Kyle.
Yeah.
hey. Sorry, I'll try next time.
You want to try it right now?
No, we're good.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So we haven't done this in a few weeks, and that was intentional. We felt like we were only hearing what Jeremy thought about things, and the rest of us are just as smart. And
Well, that's not accurate.
well, that's probably not true.
100% not true.
But so
I'm
today,
kidding. That was a joke.
oh, we know.
I mean, it's true, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Whatever.
my goodness.
Today we are gonna. So this is actually a question that came from our very own Penny,
Why are you going to point me out?
because
But you're
it's
not the only person that's asked this.
no.
Okay,
but,
good.
But you're the one who sent it in. you actually emailed us.
Because it's confusing.
Yeah, a little bit.
We had a couple other people do it too.
What was that?
I mean, dogs
My
barking,
phone
phones
rang.
going off. It's
Man,
good.
what is happening? We're falling apart. It only took 30 episodes for this thing to come off the rails. All right, so here's the question. What is spiritual warfare? Is it real? Are angels and demons fighting over us? So let's hear.
What does Jeremy think?
So this is a great question that Penny asked. It is, and this is going to be those ones that, again, we'll talk about it. I'll say some things. Hopefully you all have some feedback on it. But at the end of the day, I don't think we're going to come to the answer that everybody's wanting, to be honest. And so I do believe in spiritual warfare. I took classes on it in college. I mean, I went to a super conservative school. So we had a whole like class just on this and talking about angels and demons and all that stuff. And so I wrestle with this one because I do believe in spiritual warfare, but I don't think it's what we think it is. I think, and I'm not trying to, but, I think about like what we talked about last time, Left Behind. And, you're fighting the quarter, getting ready in case you got to fight a demon and all that stuff. So I think a lot of that stuff comes from that. A lot of our understanding of angels and demons comes from art. That's what it comes from.
Mhm.
I remember years ago, if you grew up in church, you remember this when there was a picture. I feel like every church had it. I remember my senior pastor had it in his office. It was a picture. They sold it at like Christian bookstores. And it was a dad praying over his son. And there was a demon in the background. And in the window, there was like an angel in between the demon and the kid, And so like the idea is this dad's praying over his son. And there's this demon wanting to attack his son. But then there's this angel there. So I think that when it comes to spiritual warfare, one of my favorite books about it is Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis. If you've never read that, one of the best books ever written. Now he goes into it saying this is all fiction. Like he's saying, I don't even understand how it works, but here's just like some stuff.
Can you give a synopsis of what Screw Tape Letters
So
is?
yeah, so essentially what it is it's Screw Tape is, and you'll have to help me because it's been a while, is the senior demon, and Wormwood is the junior demon. And they work for Satan. They work for the devil. And essentially, it's like his manager. And so Wormwood is trying to tempt this guy to get him to fall. And so he keeps having to go to his Screw Tape and ask Screw Tape, hey, I'm doing, like, report to him. Like, I'm doing this to tempt this guy to get him to fall. Fascinating book. There's some interesting ideas that come from it. But at the end of the book, Lewis says this, and we're talking about it. He says, there are two equal and opposite errors in which we follow the race about when we think about the devil. One is to disbelieve in their existence. So to disbelieve that there's not some type of spiritual realm or thing like that. The other is to believe and to feel an excessive and unhealthy interest in it. So what he's saying is like, there's two sides of this. There's people, and I believe this too. There are people that everything's the devil, right? Everything that happens in life, every little thing, everything you struggle with, it's always the devil. And then there's the other side is it's not the devil. Like that's just some fictitious thing. Like C.S. Lewis, I kind of fall in the middle. I don't think everything's the devil. I don't even know, like if you put me on, I don't even know if I can explain the devil. And I don't even know what I totally feel about the devil. Like I think we've gotten so far, again, that comes from art, comes from media, comes from television shows, what we think about Lucifer. So some thoughts on spiritual warfare. When you put all of the Bible verses together, it does make it very clear. The most famous verses come out of Corinthians and Ephesians. The most famous is probably Ephesians 6. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. And so that kind of paints this picture. Again, our flesh is not against flesh and blood. What I think that Paul is trying to say in that, based on my studies and understanding, is my battle's not against Kyle. My battle's not against Penny. Does that make sense? So we think of it in the way of that as our battles against these people. And what I think he's saying is that there's these other forces, these other evils, these other things in the world, and that's what our battle is against. I don't necessarily think that he's like painting the picture that there are literally angels and demons fighting this war somewhere. I'm not saying that's not true because that's above my pay grade, but I don't think that's what he's talking about. I think that what he's talking about is this, trying to paint this picture. My battle is not against you, because that's what humans make it about. My problem is you. My problem is this. And what he's trying to say is, no, there's these other forces in the world, and that is where our struggle is. And then what happens is, I think a best way to describe it, I think the spiritual warfare is our thoughts. It's our thoughts. The battlefield then is in our minds. and that leads to actions in our flesh. And that's where, does that kind of make sense? Like, to break it down. So the weapons of spiritual warfare are our thoughts. So that means the battlefield is our minds. And then based on how we deal with those things, then that leads to the action of the flesh. So if I'm going to physically hurt somebody, okay, if I'm going to attack somebody, or we think about in the world, we think about war, we think about violence, that starts in the mind. That doesn't start with a physical action. And so I think that's kind of the way I've always understood it. Some real downers on spiritual warfare, just so you know, there's no biblical connection or even idea of guardian angels. Like, that's not a biblical thing. That's completely a human concoction. There's some verses that you can really do some real massaging of to get to guardian angels. The other thing about angels, let me just burst everybody's bubble. People don't become angels. They're a whole different creation. And actually, that has nothing to do with humans. You don't become an angel when you die one day. And you don't want to, because there's all kinds of stuff there, but no guardian angels. So, I'm not saying that if we could pull back the veil of the world that we see it, that there isn't some battle going on. I'm just not sold that it's what we've made it out to be. If that is kind of based on scripture. I mean, that's just my understanding of scripture. A lot of it has been massaged. Now, I do believe in spiritual warfare, but I'll just kind of dive into what I talked about this week in my sermon. So we don't need guardian angels, because according to the text, we have the Holy Spirit. We have the Spirit that guides us and protects us and empowers us. And so, if anything, it's these forces, and I think that's probably kind of where, with Screw Tape Letters, it's these forces, these temptations going against this guy, and it's his response in the Spirit that fights that, not necessarily an angel fighting over him. And so Jesus teaches us, and we talked about this Sunday, that Jesus says that the Spirit teaches us, reminds us, counsels us, guides us, empowers us. We looked at Galatians chapter 5. It says the sinful nature. So this is that battle, the sinful nature. Now, the sinful nature, could that be the devil? Yes, but that could also just be you having war in your mind, and he's clear on that. He says, is opposite of what the Spirit wants. So there's the battle, is the flesh, the sinful nature, wherever that comes from, wants to do evil and is opposed to the Spirit. And then he goes on to say in Galatians, he says, these two forces are constantly fighting each other. So you have the Spirit fighting the human, whatever that comes from. Is that the devil? I don't know. Is that just our sinful nature? I don't know, but there's something going on there. There's a battle between those two forces. And then he goes on and he lists all of the things that bring down the human spirit, that the Spirit is fighting against. Being sexually unfaithful, worshiping other gods, hating, making trouble, being jealous, being angry, being selfish. Again, that goes back to my kind of premise. This all starts in the mind, and that's the battlefield. Now, when you hate somebody, that starts in your mind, and that may become eventually a physical action. Does that make sense? But it starts in your mind. It doesn't start with the physical action. And so anyway, so I think that's where we've got it all confused. So I do believe in spiritual warfare. I don't think it's the way that we've thought of it. Most of the images we get of like angels and demons fighting, there's one obscure kind of passage in Daniel chapter 10 where a image comes across Daniel, and he talks about it, where he sees these forces fighting each other. And then obviously in Revelation, there's some stuff. And so, I would say it plural just to make, get to people. But, it is this thing. And so there's some imagery there. But again, as Rusty's talked about, that's apocalyptic literature. Both of those books have apocalyptic kind of themes to them. And so I don't know if angels and demons are fighting over us. I do believe that there's spiritual warfare, but I think it's more of what Paul's talking about in Galatians, where there's these forces trying to attack our minds, trying to attack our spirits, and they're at war with the Holy Spirit that lives in us. And then once we give into those temptations, once we give into those things, then we start doing things that become physical actions that obviously are sinful, but also hurt people around us. So Penny, what questions do you have? Because
that's really complicated.
It is.
I'm sorry, it's just a complicated subject.
Yeah.
And I would recommend no listener just Google that, because you will not get whatever you think you're going to get out of Google.
Yeah.
Because so many people have opinions on it. So that's what made it worse for me.
Yeah. And
Google.
That's where I sit there and I go, okay, so I can't Google it because there are so many opinions. So what does the Bible actually say about it? And if you're to look for a scene where there's angels, and first of all, the guardian angel thing, that is completely man-made. There is no scriptural evidence of anything like that at all. there are angels, but to have like a personal guardian angel or something like that that's fighting over you, I'm not going to say that doesn't exist. There just isn't biblical evidence for it, is the best way to put that. That's a man-made thing. And a lot of that comes from art. And a lot of it comes from, and this might be a whole other thing, it makes you feel good to think that there's an angel fighting over you, but that isn't actually in the Bible. I think the other part of that is the realization for me, and I can only speak for myself, is it's not always the devil making me do it. Now, I'm not saying there's not some demon like in Screw Tape Letters that may, it's fiction, but is there some demon that is trying to tempt me? Well, first of all, if the Bible is accurate, there's not a demon inside of me because I have the Holy Spirit living inside of me. So there's that. But sometimes if I'm honest, like we want to blame things on the devil. It's just my sinful nature. Like it's just, there's a battle in my mind and I wasn't strong enough to fight it this time. And so that's spiritual warfare though, because the other side of this coin, I talked about this Sunday, is we think of our world as spiritual and physical. If you would have talked to Jesus about that, he would have thought you were an idiot because there was no such thing. There was just spirit. We are spirit wrapped in flesh. There's just the spirit and there is flesh wrapped around it. But there is no separation of those things. Like we are spiritual beings by design. I mean, we were breathed into this spirit, and so there isn't a spiritual life and then a physical life. There's just life and it's all intertwined. And so I think that, this idea of the devil made me do it. Well, no, sometimes I just wanted to do it and I wasn't strong enough to see that it starts in my mind or my thoughts and then it comes out in this physical manifestation and it hurts people and it causes pain and suffering in the world and in my own life. And there's your spiritual warfare.
So it's kind of like with Facebook, people will be like, "Oh, the devil! It's made by the devil. He did it." And I'm like, actually, we all did it as humans.
We did it ourselves.
Right.
We like to blame the devil a lot because it's easy.
It lets us off the hook.
It lets us off the hook for responsibility for things that we did. Now, again, I'm not saying there's not a devil and there's not a source of evil and all that. I mean, the Bible talks about that. But again, even people that think people that think they can explain the devil to you, well, good luck. There's actually not that much in there about him. And even what we do know about him is kind of convoluted. And so I think that's just, so for me, all I can do is go back to the text, look at the text. There seems to be a pattern, especially in Paul's writings, as he tries to explain the spirit, that there's this counterpart to the spirit, which is these things in the world that aren't flesh and blood. They start in the mind. They start in our thoughts. They start in human greed and all these things. And then they manifest themselves into flesh and blood. But that's not where it starts. It starts in our minds. It starts in our hearts.
So isn't there scripture that states like the one about the breastplate of righteousness and the sword of is that connected to this?
Yeah, but think about it. So the breastplate of righteousness. So he's using a breastplate is something a soldier would put on, but it's the breastplate of what? Righteousness.
Right.
Righteousness is a mental thing, not a physical thing. So again, even in that description, he's connecting mental thought patterns, with physical things. Does that kind of make sense? So he's again, it's pointing back to that picture to, it's not against flesh and blood. So if I'm fighting a physical war against the Romans, I'm putting on a breastplate. Well, we're not fighting a war against the Romans. Our battle is against something else. So we put on the breastplate of righteousness. Well, righteousness is not a physical thing. Righteousness is a state of mind. It's something you do to become righteous. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it's
the sword
just,
of truth. Well, what is
right.
truth? Truth is not I'm gonna say this carefully. Truth is not a physical thing. Truth is an idea. It's a but truth is, so it's again, it's not flesh and blood. So I have the sword of truth. So I'm taking the imagery of something that's physical, but connecting it to something that's not technically physical.
Right.
So
no major war going on probably.
No, I'm not saying that there's not. I just want us to be realistic on what the scripture's talking about.
Right.
That, that is the battlefield.
Yeah, that would make more sense than than an actual war between angels and demons, in my mind.
My dual set of pistols named Grace and Truth are no good to me anymore. Is that what you're telling me? Thanks a lot, Pat Benatar.
But I also say that saying, I mean, my college professors weren't stupid. So when he tells me if he could pull back the veil and we could see what's really going on, I mean, is there a war physically between angels and demons? Maybe. Like, I don't But if there is physically a war going on between angels and demons, um, it's different than what we've made it, because we've made that about I have a guardian angel that's fighting a demon.
Right.
Well, there's no guardian angel.
Like
You
you
know.
are represented as an angel and they're out there fighting against a demon that's supposed to be coming just after you. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But and people can give me their feedback on this, but I'm going to stick to my, and like I said, I took classes on it in college. I'm sure Rusty probably had some spiritual warfare classes, and but it makes it clear to me, at least when I read Paul's writings, even what you just brought up about like the armor of God, he's connecting physical things to non-physical things, the things that take place in the mind and the hearts of men, and those are the things that we're fighting.
And it's hard for us to differentiate between the physical and the spiritual being one united thing. It because it's just not the way our brains tend to work. We have explanations for everything, and we have physical explanations for a lot of things, and so it's hard for us to be able to say, no, these things are related. These things are intimately connected and intertwined. It's even like when we use the word supernatural. Oh, that thing was supernatural. In the ancient world, it would have just been like, well, this is just what God does. It's not that it's supernatural, because this is natural for God to do this thing. It's hard for us to wrap our head around that.
Yeah, and I think that the biggest part is the terminology too. Like when I even say mental, the things of the flesh, so the physical actions in this world that are evil, never start off in the physical. They always, if I'm going to attack you with an army, that comes from somewhere else. That comes from thoughts. That comes from power, from greed, from narcissism, from ego. That comes from those things, which are not physical at first. Those are from a mental or spiritual place, and it's just that you have a bad understanding of those things, and those things eventually become physical as far as the way that they're brought out. So, but yeah, I think it's very confusing, and even my explanation makes sense to me. And it's the way I've been able to understand it, because I think it is a cop out to be like everything's the devil. And I think it's a cop out to be like, well, I don't have to do nothing because I got an angel fighting for me. Well, no, Yeah.
So don't go live recklessly.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite lines from Crew Tape Letters too, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rusty, is when he's talking about, he's trying to tempt him in all of these like crazy ways. And he's like, well, why are you going to all that work if simply like a deck of cards will do? Because like he had a problem with gambling. And it was like this great line of like, you don't have to go, this demon doesn't have to go to some crazy extent to get this guy to fall. He's like, why would I do all of that? Why are you doing all that if just a deck of cards or so? I think he said something else. Will do.
It's already in his nature, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, so why are you doing all this extra heavy lifting when all you have to do is like just gently push in that direction?
Right.
Yep.
All right.
And we'll follow suit.
Oh, I get it.
Question?
Good job with the deck of cards.
See?
I liked it.
No, it did. It answered it. I mean, I assumed like that's what you were going to say, honestly. I guess maybe I know you, but that's what I had assumed also that spiritual warfare was. But you never know. There might be some like major battle happening behind the veil. We don't know.
And there could be. And I'm open to the fact that there could be. I just don't see a lot of scriptural evidence for that. And I think it's easy to push to that and assume it's easy to assume the battle is not over there and not here.
Right.
And when I say here, I mean in our hearts and our minds. Like It's easy to push the battle there because then I'm not responsible.
Or you're not at fault for it. Like, yeah, I get that. See, everyone, if you have a question, you should email them.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll have like an expert to, like, I had no idea that Jeremy knew so much about spiritual warfare or took a class on it. So email us.
Well, everybody, that is what Jeremy thought.
That's what Jeremy thought.
Now, to follow that up, we are going to ask Kyle. Kyle, if you have a student possessed by a demon, what do you do to exorcise that situation?
I'd take him to Jeremy.
Oh, okay.
He knows
Good
more
answer.
than I do.
I have done like, I should get into this. I've done like clearings of houses and stuff like that. I don't know if it does anything. I'll do it if somebody asks, but it's,
What do you do? Go in and like pray?
Yeah, just pray over the house, pray over the people, But
He
and here's
takes old baptism water and
here's the other
throws it.
thing that I think, and this is the secret of the trade. If someone believes it's doing something, it never hurts to do it.
Yeah.
And so, like, if they believe that me going in their house, praying over their house is getting rid of some evil spirit or some evil thing, even if I'm not 100% sold that that's actually happening, like, okay, like that's part of your journey.
You're going to get so many emails. I guarantee it.
Well, it's not like I do it all the time. It's just
Everybody
happened a few
reach out to Jeremy
That's
and
his-
ask
that's
him
his
to come
Thursday
and do
work.
a cleansing of your house.
Yeah.
He will happily do it.
times. Yeah. I'll also eat your food that you leave behind.
That's
So,
right. All right. Well, hey, we got some stuff coming up here at Journey that we want you to know about. We just wrapped up our Spooked series, and that was a whole lot of fun. We had a whole lot of fun making those short films for you that Kyle ended up being essentially the villain in all of them. But he's actually a great guy, and he's not creepy at all. I mean, maybe a little creepy.
I was going to
but
say,
Everybody's a little bit weird.
speak for yourself.
That's right. That's right. So we have a new series starting this week. It's called Best Laid Plans, and we're really excited about that one. Jeremy will share more about what that is on Sunday. Right now, this is releasing on Thursday, November 3rd, but we're recording on Tuesday, November 1st. We are in the middle of Love Bullet Week, and last night we had several houses around the community handing out candy and water and drinks courtesy of Journey Church. And the rest of the week, we have teams going out to some of our area schools and just showing them some love, some outdoor work, some landscaping, some cleaning, that type of stuff. So we're going to be doing more of these opportunities in the future, and we'll be sure to get those in front of you so you can sign up. Grinchmas is coming, or a not so Grinchmas Christmas this year. It is December 8th through the 10th. So you can put that on your calendar as far as when you can show up and attend. If you would like to help with that, we encourage you to reach out to Kira at journeyshepherdsville.com. You can also find more information about Grinchmas on the app. Okay, so let's finish up today with just a quick little group chat session about what you're most excited about this holiday season at Journey. Specifically at Journey, what are you most excited about this Christmas season?
Man, I'm actually excited because I feel like this might be our one Christmas where we can start getting people back in here for Christmas, and we're gonna go all out for worship, and it's gonna be awesome. We have like a couple nights or 3 nights or 3 days of Christmas Eve, and we're gonna have a 9 p.m. service the day before, right? Or no, on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And so we're excited.
Yeah,
It's
and we
gonna be great.
finally got Mariah Carey. It took a while.
It did.
But
we got Adele for Jeremy down there.
Their riders are ridiculous. It was like they only want the green Skittles.
Oh.
And so I have to sort those out by hand.
You can just buy them in bulk.
yeah.
Well, it's expensive though.
Yeah.
And I don't know
Yeah.
if she's worth it.
Maybe you have to chew it up before you give it to her as well.
No,
like
I
Lady
think
Bird.
Christmas is going to be great. You know what? This isn't about Journey, but it is. My favorite thing at Christmas, and this is going to sound so weird, is after the late service at 9 p.m. to drive around the city and see all the lights turned off. Like to see like everything shut down and like realize like people are like home and stuff like that with their families and stuff. Like, I don't know why. I know it sounds like eerie, but
No,
it
it
actually,
sounds
it's so
thoughtful.
peaceful. Like it just really is to like drive around and do that. So I'll get to do that at the 9 o'clock service. So it's pretty cool. I'm excited about Grinchmas. I think it's going to be, or not so Grinchmas. I think it'll be fun. I love Grinchmas. It's a lot of work and stuff, but I do like being a part of it.
What about you, Kyle? What are you most excited about?
Grinchmas, obviously, everybody talks about it, and I still don't fully know what to expect. All I've been told is it's awesome and it's something you aren't going to want to miss, and I still have no clue what that means for me.
Yeah, that's about right. This
Yeah.
will be my second one, so I'm right
So
there.
we're learning.
Yes. Yeah. Very good. Well, I'm really excited. We've got some fun stuff planned to incorporate into our worship services. Maybe some more videos, maybe some fun songs, just some things to keep things light and happy and fun that I'm really looking forward to. So, anybody else have any parting words before we sign off for the day?
Do you say aloha when you say goodbye as well?
Well, of course,
Okay.
Does aloha mean goodbye too?
it
I thought-
does.
are
It
you
means
sure?
both of them?
Means hello and goodbye.
Oh, that just doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. Are you sure? Like if I said
I mean-
aloha to you, that would mean hello.
Well,
Not goodbye.
but it's all context. It's all context.
I'm pretty sure it's not the same word for Hello and goodbye.
All right, we're
Like
gonna,
even the most primitive languages have two different words for hello and goodbye.
I'm looking it up right now. Aloha.
So we need to keep talking while you're
Yeah,
looking this
go
up?
ahead and just
Yeah,
vamp for a minute.
So we're excited about Christmas.
Okay, so
Called
I
Beppo.
typed
Come
in
on.
aloha
Huh.
on Google Translate, and it literally came back as bye bye.
But it also means hello, right?
What is the real meaning of aloha? Is the presence of breath. And with that, my friends,
Okay.
we are leaving you. Aloha.
I like them. They're fun.
You know what? People in the car.
Trying to see like who's gonna say what. That's right. Like who's gonna say the dumb thing like jellyfish?
But you redeemed yourself.
Because of the man of war. I knew
Yeah.
I was thinking of something along those lines. I was way off of it.
Samsonite. Way off. All right. Well, that's our show for today. We can't wait to be with you again. Once again, Jeremy and I are currently in Guatemala while you're listening to this, and hopefully we will be back with you soon.